Hey everyone, welcome to Recess, brought to you by Roadmunk. We're so glad you could take a break with us, and thank you for joining us on a different platform today. My name is Amy. I'm a content marketing specialist at Roadmunk, and I'll be hosting your Recess session today. If you do follow our community, we also have a podcast called Product to Product that I host and produce that you could subscribe to on Apple or Spotify or on our website as well. And as for Recess, we'll be recording this live session, but we will also be posting the recording plus a summary with time codes on our Medium page in the coming days. So also feel free to let us know where you're from, what company you're at, and what role you're in. And let us know if you're a repeat attendee because we love seeing that. Today we have Liz, Roadmonk's events manager, moderating. She'll be taking your questions. So feel free to send them in throughout our conversation and we'll answer them in the last 10 minutes of this 30-minute session. So today we have Monica from PlayStation with us. Welcome to Recess, Monica.
Hi, thanks Amy for having me.
Monica is currently a senior manager of product management at PlayStation. So Monica, can you tell me about yourself and how you got involved with product?
Yeah, so I have been in product management for about 10 years now. My early career, I was in sales and operations, working for a payments company, actually, while I was in college. And I, really enjoyed, understanding the nuances of how payments worked. And this was in a time when websites were really starting to take off and businesses were taking their stores online. So something that I got really passionate about was helping small businesses go online and utilize e-commerce systems. And so that was something that got me into product. So my first job in product was for a medium-sized company, iPayment, and I was really helping manage online gateways, POS systems, those types of products. And it was really, really fun learning a lot about commerce systems and payment platforms. About 5 years ago, I joined PlayStation. And so my key role at PlayStation at the time was to help manage the payment systems within the PlayStation Network platform. So if you're playing a game online, or if you want to buy a digital game from the PlayStation Network, you're utilizing the PlayStation Store. And so that store obviously has commerce systems integrated, and those are where I started working. Over time, we kind of grew that platform and grew the functionality so much that we ended up expanding our team, expanding the Scrum teams that we were able to work with, and a lot of the development folks in that group.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about expanding your team. What does your team look like right now?
Yeah, so right now there's 4 of us that work specifically on the payment and fraud platform, and then another group of 4 folks who work with us on commerce. So that's within the commerce platform at PlayStation. We have somebody who's overseeing our subscriptions platform, so that's helping manage how we bill or manage our PlayStation Plus product or PlayStation Now product. We have somebody who manages our offers platform. And so the offers platform, that's how we can provide, banners and promotions, discounts, coupon codes in the store for our players. And then we oversee our payment optimization work stream, which is how we add the payment methods our players want to use. So PlayStation's a global brand. We've got stores in over 70 countries, and players in all of these countries don't necessarily use credit cards as their primary payment instrument. So in these different countries, we want to really understand what payment methods make sense and how we can get those integrated into the platform. We also oversee the actual transaction routing. So that's a bit of a deeper layer into commerce, where we're managing all of the data, how we ledger these transactions, recognizing revenue. And then another layer of that is fraud management. So when you're dealing with platforms of this size and scope, especially PlayStation, which is a brand that draws a lot of attention, you have to really manage your risk and exploits that we see in the field. So that's what our team does. Yeah, it's pretty fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we all have heard of the brand PlayStation, but can you kind of give me a high-level overview of what Sony Interactive Entertainment does? I believe that's the parent company, right? And sort of how your role fits into that umbrella.
Yeah, definitely. So Sony Interactive Entertainment is the company. PlayStation is the product. So PlayStation, that we're all familiar with, actually encompasses a couple of different parts. So there's the game console, right, which is a hardware device that our players use to play games. We also have a gaming division, so our game studios that are developing and publishing first-party titles for PlayStation. And then we have the network platform. So the network platform is actually where we work, and that's the commerce system, our store. So the digital store that you see on the PlayStation device, our web store, mobile store, etc. But PlayStation and SIE is really an ecosystem for gamers, right? So it's where you can access games, play games, where creators, so other game publishers are publishing content to our platform. And then we also have other content on the platform, not just games. So you can stream movies, videos, Netflix, etc.
Yeah. So you're so knowledgeable about all of this. Are you a gamer yourself?
Yes. So it was a really funny story. Actually, 5 years ago, when I was interviewing at PlayStation, my boss, or my would-be boss, asked me if I was a gamer. And I was like, yeah, I play Xbox all the time. So that went over really well. But
Yeah.
yeah, I do play quite a bit. I actually really enjoy the Nathan Drake series, and all of those games are really fun. I've been playing The Last of Us 2 for the past month or so. It just came out. It's a super great, fun game to play. Fun, depending on your definition of fun. It can be also sad and depressing, but it's a good game. Yeah. So, do you play, Amy?
I'm not a game player, to be very honest. I don't know. I think it was a childhood thing where my cousins would always beat me in every game we played. So it was just like, I'm not good at this. I don't want to play it anymore. Um, in our pre-interview, you mentioned that a chunk of your role is to develop your team's strategy and then deliver that strategy. So to help your team deliver that strategy, you mentioned you have a delivery framework in place. Can you expand on that framework and how it shapes the way your team works?
Yeah, definitely. So at PlayStation in product management, we kind of have a philosophy that we focus on our customers and the customer outcomes that we want to drive with everything that we develop. So first, we always think about how we can make our customers' jobs easier. There's a great book. I'm going to totally space on the author, Jobs to Be Done. Um, Anthony Olwick. I hope he is listening, but he's probably. But yes, a really good book. Definitely recommend it. And that's a philosophy that we at PlayStation really like to um, follow when we're putting together a strategy for how we deliver products. So we're starting with the customer outcomes in mind. What does the customer want, need? What job that are they trying to do that we can make easier? And finding that out is kind of difficult. So because you can't just say, "Hey, customer, what do you want?"
Mm,
If we could do that, all of our jobs would be really easy. So going through, an analysis, research, spending time with our consumers, spending time on the platform using our product is something that we all spend a ton of time doing. From that time where we're discovering whether it's different gaps in the data. So we pull a bunch of data from the platform and we see like, oh, like a lot of people are abandoning their journey here, and we can find places where that happens. And what we'll do is we'll then start to form a hypothesis of why are they abandoning in their journey here. What is something that I think as a product manager from my research or from something that I've learned might be able to help our customer continue that journey or make it through that gap. And we start to think a little bit about impacts. So if I was to confirm my hypothesis and say like, yes, I can close this gap, what impact would I have on my customer, right? And it might be, oh, I can help reduce 10% abandonment at this stage in the customer journey. And reducing that abandonment is going to get a customer to the content that they want to play faster or easier. They don't have to spend as much time waiting for a download, whatever that might be. So that's kind of a really key first step in our framework is understanding and defining the outcomes that we're trying to drive with a product or a feature. And so that's those hypotheses and impacts that we're predicting. The next part of the framework is what we call research and analysis. And so this is where we're doing proof of concepts. We're talking to our engineering folks, our partners that are going to help us understand feasibility, level of effort, how much would it take for us to test this hypothesis? How can we try to understand if those impacts are accurate or if we're on the right track with those impacts that we've put forward? We hopefully have some indication from a proof of concept. We love to do proof of concepts, right? Because that's something we can prototype really quickly, get it out there and see how our players are actually interacting with whatever the feature might be. If there's some cases, especially in commerce systems, where you can't, right? Because if we're dealing with payments, there's tax and legal kind of parts of these systems that you just kind of have to send it out there, make sure it works, and let it go. But most of the time, we're testing our hypotheses and we're doing kind of rapid prototyping. Once we have the results from our POCs, from our LOE discussions with our engineering partners, we go into the kind of the last part of this framework, which we call solutioning. And solutioning is where we're putting together a full plan of key deliverables, when we think those are going to go out. That's when we're talking to our legal, our PR teams, if we're going to be releasing a major feature to the platform. And then we get a release timeline kind of solid. So that's it. It seems like a lot, but it depending on the scope of the feature, that framework can go really quickly. So something that you could get done in like a month. Or if it's something massive, it could take a year, more than 1 year. But yeah, that's pretty much the framework we use for almost everything.
Yeah. As a product manager, when you're testing out your hypothesis, do you prefer to see something fail really miserably, or do you prefer just to be like, like it kind of worked, but did it?
So, mixed answer here. So I don't prefer things to fail, but I'm excited when I get that answer definitively.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I think something that product managers and our engineering partners struggle with a lot is spending a lot of time and energy and resources working on something that you ship out into the wild and it doesn't work. It's like the most heartbreaking. So if you can find out early and often what doesn't work, that's just exciting. And it's exciting because you can usually learn what might work from some of those experiments.
Yeah. How important then is this experimental spirit on teams? Because, some PMs might be very scared to do the A/B testing or, test out their ideas. But like you said, it's a waste of time if you put all this effort into building a feature and it doesn't work.
Yeah, I would say there's definitely a need for there to be a culture of experimentation within your product team, within your engineering partners. And you absolutely have to have the tools to do it, right? And so I think that one thing that I struggled with as a product manager for many years was that I didn't necessarily have the space to breathe and do some experiments that I wanted. And so in those cases, I think scoping an MVP is really important. So if you can't experiment quickly because you don't have the platform to do it, maybe you don't have the right culture within your stakeholder group or within your product team to do it. One way to try to get something and get an answer to something really quickly is with a super small MVP. What is the real smallest thing that you can ship out and learn something from?
Right. And also in our pre-interview, we learned that one of your passions is helping other product managers. At Sony Interactive Entertainment, you've helped create a framework for growth in the product management sort of career. Can you share what you've done to create this growth environment? How do you provide mentorship as well?
Yeah, so something that has been super important for me and for folks on my team is that when you move into product management, 100% of us, I think, are coming from various backgrounds that are not product management, right? Like we went to business school, we went to, we got degrees in finance or marketing. Um, there's not really a product management degree that people are getting. So folks come into product management from a lot of different places. Sales and operations. I've got some folks on my team that came from engineering, some folks on my team that came from data science, right? So these various backgrounds. Product management as a craft is something that I think can be really easily taught. And so that's something that I've taken up, especially within my team, as something that we do and we spend time on every year. It's one of our key goals every year is that something should be around the development of your craft of product management. I'm going to shout out a couple. So again, that Jobs to Be Done book, really a good book that we evangelize at PlayStation, especially within my team. Some folks within PlayStation and myself, we get together and do like product type TED Talks. We have like a product camp that we like to do. And so product camp is something that I think is super fun. And it's with a lot of other product managers. And what you'll do is you'll take a feature idea or a business case that you want to try to kind of get moving and present it to other product managers first. So maybe before you take it to your stakeholder group, before you take it up to executives, you're shooting it out with other product managers to get their input, to get maybe some ideas that you didn't think about. Some folks on my team, I encourage to go take some courses with pragmatic marketing. So really, they do really great courses. I think they are moving them now virtually, so it might be even easier to take some of their courses. But they've got really great product to product learning and development courses about different parts of product management. Like, how are you gathering requirements from various stakeholders? How do you negotiate priorities, competing priorities with stakeholders? Some of the key challenges that I think product managers have across, every industry, every company, is how can you really manage not just the strategy of what you're going to do for your work stream or for your product, but how can you manage the expectations that your stakeholders have, that your leadership has? So those are some of the things that we spend a lot of time on, and it's something that I think is super important, especially because, again, none of us came from a background of products, right? We all come from something else.
Yeah. Monica, let's jump into one of the questions because this kind of touches upon what you talked about, managing those expectations. So one of our questions says, how do you track voice of customer / their feedback and the requests that come in through internal employees and stakeholders? Do you offer a view to those who submit feedback so they can see where the request is in the pipeline or the roadmap?
Yeah, this is such a great question. And this is something that I think, we found there was some friction around a number of years ago because we'd have so many great ideas coming into our group, our team. And it gets difficult when you're working on kind of a broad scope of things, right? Payments, payment experience, fraud, commerce systems. Ideas are coming from all over. From our customers, we get input from customer service. We get input just reading forums about PlayStation. We can see customers maybe complaining or suggesting things that could be better. And then, of course, a diverse stakeholder group, right? So again, in commerce systems, we work very closely with legal, compliance, our sales team, our fraud and security team. One thing that we put in place for our team is actually a submission page, and it's we use Confluence at PlayStation. So we created a template. There's 4 steps, and the first step is, what's the customer outcome of this idea or issue that you're going to pitch to us? We call it the ideas and issues page. And so, somebody potentially in legal is going to come to this page and say like, hey, I've got an issue. The key outcome here, thinking from a protecting our liability perspective is, as a legal representative at PlayStation, I want to protect the liability of the organization with whatever that issue might be. And then the 3 things that you have to submit is some context. So like, what's the context of this request? Why, how'd you come up with it? Did you find some data somewhere that showed a key gap? Did we have, a law change in a country where we have a store? So what's the context? The next is a hypothesis. So what is your hypothesis? How are we going to fill that gap? What's the idea that you have of closing it and helping our customer meet that outcome? If it's a legal example, again, it might be, hey, we need to potentially add some language to our checkout flow or something. And then the last is impact. So is there an impact or a risk that we need to know about? For a legal example, it's risk, right? Hey, maybe we would lose our ability to do business in a country if we don't fix this. Or if it's an impact, like, hey, we can close this abandonment gap by 10%. And like, that's a huge impact to our players and to our business. So we have this page where all of our various constituents can enter in ideas and issues. And we utilize that page as a really transparent place to categorize things. So it'll go into a backlog from that page. You can see which backlog it's in. So if it's in commerce, payment optimization, platform, et cetera. So we have like 5 different backlogs that we manage. And then it has a status within the backlog as well. That's also shown on that page. And so that status will say backlogged, prioritized, planning, completed, or deprecated. And if it is deprecated, we always explain why, right? And we work with that submitter to make sure they understand why something would be deprecated. But I found that having a place where we can direct our constituents to go and see what's going on with whatever idea or issue they have, it's really good. It's transparent. It allows us to have nice conversations. So if you do utilize Confluence, there's like comments below the submissions that you can have back and forth. It works really well. I think if you don't have Confluence, you can probably get away with putting something together on even an Excel sheet, just to kind of keep track of these things and share it with your stakeholders or with your partners in other parts of the organization.
Right. I think feedback and idea management is so important, but it's also important to have like a centralized place for these things to come together. And Monica, it just seems like you love frameworks, and I love that too. Sometimes people think documentation can, be overbearing, but I think it's very clear, it's concise, and when you do say no to an idea, this is the reason why. It's not just because I'm saying no for the heck of it. Here's another question. It says, would you say you spend more time in the problem space and hypothesis of your framework, or less time on the solution phase, or vice versa, or the opposite?
Yeah, great question. So I'm going to say what the ideal would be, and then I'll say what the actual is. So ideally, product managers would spend 80% of their time thinking about problems, putting together hypotheses, and doing research with their customer to understand how their customers struggling or could have something done easier, better, more efficient, whatever it is. Ideally, that's where we would be spending a majority of our time. I think that realistically, we do spend a lot of time in solutioning because especially on huge platforms like PlayStation, there's so many nuances to how a feature works, what needs to go into developing that feature. Working with our partners across the organization, again, like you've got to have really close partnerships with your legal, customer service, finance. We have various store operations teams around the world that we have to make sure are really well aligned with the solution that we're putting together. So I'd say ideally you'd spend 80% on that problem space and coming up with hypotheses and doing research, and 20% of your time solutioning. I think realistically it's more a 50-50, at least for our team.
Yeah. One of the other questions says, besides the products at PlayStation and Sony, what are your favorite products?
Okay. That's a good question. I would say one of the questions I ask also when I'm interviewing product managers is like, what's a product that you use every day and why? And I think that, I'll talk a little bit about my, okay, I can't. All right, I'm gonna use my I was gonna say my Nintendo Switch, but I feel like that would be disingenuous to talk about another gaming platform. But I use my Kindle every day as well, so I read a lot. And I like my Kindle because I can get access to a lot of books and I don't have to like actually keep a lot of books. I know there's some like purists out there who just need to have the pages in their hand. But I like being able to kind of like go between books and get access to any book I want really easily. I'm sure Amazon loves that I do that as well. So yeah, I'll use my Kindle. I definitely use it every day. It's a good product because it gives me access to the things I want quickly, easily. It's also waterproof. So
Mm. What's a product that someone's mentioned to you when you ask that question in an interview and you're like, oh, I never thought about that being a great product?
yeah, so one that was just surprising to me was a disposable razor. And it was just like a funny conversation because, the guy was talking a bit about how if you think, because he liked to do like the straight razor too. And he was like, yeah, if you think about it, the disposable razor was like a really revolutionary product because not a lot of people had the time or even the focus to be able to straight razor shave. Same with even women, right? It wasn't that easy for us to shave as often or as nicely as we wanted to without cutting ourselves. And so the disposable razor was his product, and I think he used Dollar Shave Club too, and so he talked a bit about Dollar Shave Club. So yeah, it was an interesting product to hear about in that question.
Yeah. For that question for me, I was like, the Dyson vacuum, of course. But not everyone can afford that. Okay, so everyone, as we wind down our session, I want to thank Monica for being so generous with her time and being a guest on Recess, and you, the viewer, for attending. Monica, where can people find you to connect?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I check it pretty often. I like to go through those questions and the feed where you see people kind of posting interesting articles. Also, reach out to me on my email if you'd like, monica.d@sony.com.
You just opened the whole floodgates of emails coming to you.
That's all right. I'm always happy to answer questions other product managers have. So yeah, email me.
That's awesome. Okay, so we'll be posting this recording and a summary with the time codes on Medium, so please look forward to that if you need it. Our next recess session will be August 4th, and we look forward to having you join us. Thanks again, everyone, for dropping by, and thank you again, Monica. That was wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amy.